Hi there, welcome to this Mathscraft 2 Outcome 4 lecture on trigonometry. In this class, we're going to look at something called the sine rule. So previously, when we've done trigonometry, we have looked purely at right-angled triangles. You should remember SOHCAHTOA. Trigonometry also works in non-right-angled triangles, but there are different rules. So you can see this triangle here doesn't have a right angle in it. Now, the key to this is to be able to label the triangle properly. So we label the angles with capital letters, in this case A, B and C. And the side that is opposite the angle A is always labelled lowercase a. The side opposite angle B is labelled lowercase b. And the side opposite angle C, lowercase c, and so on. Now, these letters might change. So, for example, if A was in fact Q, then the side opposite that would be lowercase q, and so on. So, to use the sine rule, this is the rule here. It is A over sine A is equal to B over sine B is equal to C over sine C. And we can use this rule to find a missing side in any triangle. Okay, so there's three parts to this rule, and you will see that one of the parts we actually don't need to use, but it depends on the question. So let's look at an example here. Now, firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recap the rule just up here. So A over sine A is equal to B over sine B is equal to C over sine C. Now, look at this triangle. We are trying to find the side C. So we definitely need to use this part of the equation because that's the bit we're going to need to find. Now, we need to look and see where there's the other information. So we're given a side B here, and we're given an angle B. So we're definitely going to use that. Now, there is no information for either A part. There's no angle, there's no side. So actually what we can do is we can just ignore that. We can cross it out. Okay? And now what we do is we sub in the correct parts into the equation. So the side B is 7. So I'm going to put that there. And that's over sine of angle B. Well, angle B is 60. So that's going to be sine 60. Side C, we don't know. That's what we're trying to find. And then angle C is 50. So that's going to be sine 50. Now, what we need to then do, now we've got all the parts put in the equation, we need to just move a couple of things around. In this case, we're trying to find C. So we need to take this sine 50, which is dividing the C, and bring it up to this side and multiply. So it's going to be 7 times by sine 50 divided by sine 60, and that's going to equal C. And at that point, what we need to do is we need to calculate it on our calculator. So 7 times sine 50, and then divided by sine 60. Make sure your calculator is set in the correct settings in degrees. And what we get is we get 6.19 centimeters. Okay, so that is the value of the side C. Let's do another example. So find the side D. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write out the sine rule. But in this case, I've got D, E, and F. So it's going to be D over sine D, E over sine E, and F over sine F. Now, we definitely need, we're trying to find D, so we need to definitely use that one. And we've also got information for E, both the angle and the side. We've also got a bit of information for F here as well. Now, I'm actually going to ignore that. I'm going to cross that out. But we need to know this angle here. But we can actually work that angle out very quickly. So the angle D it's going to be, remember, all the angles in a triangle should add up to 180. So if I subtract these two numbers away from 180, I will get the value of the angle D. So therefore, D is 45 degrees. So now I do have that information. So let's now sub in those parts. So we know that the side D is what we're trying to find, and the angle D is 45. So sine 45. E is 8 centimeters, and the side E is 110. Sorry, the angle E is 110. Right, so we now need to, in this case, we're going to move the sine 45 because that's divided the D. So we're going to bring that onto this side. So D is going to equal 8 times by sine 45. Remember, you can do a bit of cross multiplication there. And then we need to simply calculate that on our calculator. So 8 times sine 45, and then divide by sine 110. And that gives me 6.02 centimeters. Okay, so that's how we find a missing side using the sine rule. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do something very similar, but we're going to calculate a missing angle. Okay, now all that's different here is that when we try and in the missing angle, the rule looks almost the same, except everything is now upside down. All we've done is turn everything over, and that's fine to do that. So it's gonna behave in the same way. Okay, all we've done, we've switched over the A and the sine A, B and the sine B, C and the sine C. As long as we switch everything over, that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, the rule behaves pretty similarly. So you use that for finding a missing angle. Okay, so when you're finding a missing side, we'll use this rule. That's where the sides are on the top. And then when you're finding the missing angle, that's when the angles are on the top. So we just flip it over. So find angle Q. So we know we're finding an angle, so I know that I need to write the original rule upside down. So I'm going to do that. And I also need to change the letters as well, of course. So in this case, we've got sine P over P equals sine Q over Q equals sine R over R. Now let's see what information we've got. Now we definitely need to find Q, so we're definitely going to need this one. And the other bits of information, well, we've got the angle P and the side P. We don't know R, the angle, or the side, so we can just ignore that one now. So let's plug these in. So angle P is 54. So that's going to be sine 54. Oh, and then little p is going to be 7, because that's the side. Sine Q, well, we don't know what Q is, the angle, but we do know that the side Q is going to be 6. Okay, now we do the same. So in this case, the sine Q has been divided by 6, so we need to bring the 6 across and multiply. So that's going to be 6 times sine 54 all over 7, and that's going to be equal to sine Q. So if I calculate that, that gets me 0.693. Now that doesn't look like the right angle at the moment, and that is because that is currently sine Q. So like when you're finding a missing angle in SOHCAHTOA, you need to bring the sine across and do inverse. So inverse sine, shift sine on your calculator of 0.693, and that will find Q. And that gives me an answer of 44 degrees. Okay, so there is just a tiny extra step when you're finding an angle of doing the inverse sine. So in this one, find angle B. So again, I'm going to write the rule out. So we're back in ABC. So we've got sine A over A equals sine B over B equals sine C over C. So A, the angle is 120. So it's going to be sine 120 divided by 15 equals sine B over B. Well, we don't know angle B. That's what we're trying to find. And the side B is going to be 6. And then we haven't got information for either of the C's, so we can ignore them. Okay, so again, sine B, the B is the thing we want, so we're going to need to multiply this side by 6. So we get 6 times sine 120 all over 15 is equal to sine B. So I'll calculate that, which gives me 0.346. And then remember, we need to then calculate B by doing inverse sine. So inverse sine of 0.346 is equal to B. And then, so shift sine of that number gives me B. It's fine to do the nearest whole number for an angle. So that is going to be 20 degrees. Okay, so that covers the sine rule. There'll now be some questions for you to try from the workbook, which I'll explain in the class. Thanks very much.